As the Phillies get set to enter the 2025 season, it's becoming more clear that JT Realmuto will need more time away from behind the dish this season. With that being said, the obvious choice to have the backup catcher play meaningful innings in 2025 is Rafael Marchan. Let's talk about it next on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the PHLY Phillies podcast. I'm Tyler Zulli, and today we're going to break down why the backup catcher needs to be Rafael Marchan in 2025 and not Garrett Stubbs. Let's start with the obvious, the contract specifics. Marchan is out of minor league options heading into this season, which means that if the Phillies were to attempt to pass him through and send him down to AAA, they would have to send him through irrevocable waivers. With that being said, any team across Major League Baseball could put a claim in for Marchan, and he would be with them for 2025. Would a team put a claim in for Marchan? I don't know, but I think the contract and his relative youth would play a part in the fact to answer that question would be yes. Positional scarcity is real at the catcher position, and Marchan could be sought as a backup catcher who's only making $800,000 in his final pre-arbitration season. Even heading into pre-arb, Marchan is still under team control for all of his arbitration years, meaning that he wouldn't become a free agent until 2030. I'd imagine some team would claim him, and then you're losing him for nothing. Stubbs, meanwhile, signed a split-level deal, meaning that his pay will be determined based on if he's in Philly or in Lehigh Valley. That's not really important to anybody in this conversation except for Stubbs, but what is important is that Stubbs has one option left. It would make things significantly easier for the Phillies should Stubbs be the one to be sent down. Send him down, JT and Marchan on the 26th, and Stubbs is up in case of injury. It's just too straightforward not to be the play. But it's not just contractual obligations that make Marchan the obvious choice in 2025. JT Realmuto will likely healthy sit more games than he has in any season as the Phillies catcher. He played at least 134 games every season for the Phillies. That's been a full season since the Phillies acquired him back in 2019 and caught at least 118 of those games every year until last year when injury forced him to play just 99. Even fully healthy, the Phillies figured to limit, especially early, the amount of days in which Realmuto will catch. That means you need a catcher to fill JT's void this season. To me, Marchan is the only of the two options that I trust offensively. Let's take a look at Rafael Marchan's numbers from last year in a small sample size, admittedly. 17 games and 51 at-bats in 2024, a near 300 average, 345, 549 split, 7 extra base hits and 6 RBIs. The barrel rates and the hard hit number are the two that I want you to take a look at because we'll compare them to Garrett Stubbs in just a second. The pop time, I think, is in a small sample size again, significant, but again, a comparable number that we'll talk about moving forward. The comparable pop in Marchan's bat compared to Stubbs is simply undeniable. Despite 110 more at-bats, Stubbs managed fewer extra base hits, just 1 more RBI, and completely depleted metrics. Marchan's average exit velocity was nearly 7 miles per hour more than Stubbs, and Stubbs hasn't barreled a baseball in 2 seasons, and he doesn't particularly hit the ball hard either, as you see by his low hard hit percentage there. Stubbs also struck out in nearly 37% of his at-bats, Marchan just 14%. This isn't meant to be a knock on Stubbs. I like the guy as a guy, but he just doesn't provide the Phillies anything offensively in a year that they'll need a catcher to lock in. Now, one thing I will give Stubbs credit for is his pop time. Stubbs had a 1.88 pop time to second base last year, which was good for 4th across Major League Baseball for catchers who had at least 20 throws down to second base. No surprise, JT Realmuto was first in that regard for the 3rd consecutive year. Stubbs was also slightly above league average in caught stealing above average, posting a 2 in 2024, and threw out 19% of his base stealers in 2024 as well. But again, in a small sample size, Marchan was close enough to these metrics to not warrant any concern defensively. His pop time on the 6 throws, as you saw, was nearly identical, and he was league average or better in framing, caught stealing, and blocks above average. As always with Marchan, it's going to be a question of health. Marchan missed chunks of seasons now for each of the last few years and actually has not played a professional game in April at any level for 5 straight seasons now. He's also not played more than 70 games in a year since 2019. The health concerns are palpable, but assuming health, there is no question that Rafael Marchan should be on the Phillies opening day roster when they head to Washington as the team's backup catcher.